Okay. So the biggest thing that your job is going to be this year is really to have, you're the record keeper for your club. You are the person that they should be able to come to and be able to get knowledge from. Not everybody has that knowledge. So one of the biggest things you can really do before you take on this job for the year is really get a copy of your club's constitution and bylaws and read it and understand it. If you have questions about that in any way, please talk to somebody in your club, past presidents or whatever, to try and make sure you have a really good knowledge of your constitution and bylaws. So if you read that, and then you also go over the Rotary principles and procedures, make sure that all that for your club is meshing up together. That's really important, because if you, sometimes, a lot of times people don't read their constitution, don't read their bylaws, then they go and read them, and then they read the Rotary principles and procedures, and all of a sudden there's this flag going, oh, how come we're not doing it this way, and why is that, and should we be doing it somewhere different? So between now and when you actually officially take the role the 1st of July, try and make sure that that is all for your club, all meshed up, so that it makes sense, and it is, you know, your current bylaws and constitution, the things that Rotary might have changed in the last year or two. Make sure that all of that is working together, because that's the biggest part of that. And then the other parts we're going to get into are just about records. So if you could go on to the next slide, Jeff, that'd be great. And anywhere in this, if somebody has a question, please go ahead and raise your hand or send a little quick note, and Jeff can unmute you so that either I can answer the question. I think Patty's on, or if I can't answer it, Patty can, and we can kind of go from there.
Noni, I think the best way to do this, they can unmute themselves, but if people would just send a chat to Jeff Michaelman, then I'll tell Noni that there's a question.
Okay, so if that works for everybody, that would be good. So you guys are basically, the biggest thing that you are needing to work with is the manual of procedures from RI. And all these documents can be found online. There's no like hidden things or something like that. Your club bylaws and policies, hopefully that is online with your club's information. Hopefully it's stored in DACDB. If it's not, maybe it's a good time for you to take that on and make sure that it is updated in DACDB so that your club can follow that. Or if for some, there's very few clubs who are not on DACDB, make sure at least you have a copy of that and you can share that with your members if there's questions and stuff like that. Historical copies of all meeting minutes. That's another thing also that hopefully has been uploaded over the years on DACDB. It's also a really good resource as a secretary to see how meetings have been conducted in the past. I know when I was secretary, one of the best things that I did was I looked how other people had taken notes, and that really helped me to be able to decipher what kinds of things were important to my club, and help to try the president to run the meeting. Each president is going to have their own style on what they would like to do and what they think needs to happen during those meetings. So it's a really good idea to make sure that you have an idea of what they're looking for. But like I said, go back to past copies of meeting minutes, and that will actually give you and your president a really good starting point for the next year. Next is rosters of all club members. Verify that all the information is up to date. This is like one of the most important things you can do as a secretary, because not only is this important for your club, it's important for our district, it's important for RI as a whole. So having that up to date is super important, and we're going to talk about some of that as we go along in this presentation today. Next, we're talking about district newsletters. Make sure that information is getting out from the district to your club members. A lot of times, like this year, it was Mike Dara was sending it out to presidents and things were being read. Make sure that your president is getting copies of that. You're getting copies of that so that you can have copies of that information as well. Club bulletins or weekly emails. I know a lot of clubs, especially these days, don't have hard copy bulletins out, but they do them via weekly emails. I know our club secretary sends one out each week to update what is on there, and that's just fine. But make sure that that is something that is happening, so that your members are informed. They feel like they're involved. They know what's going on, especially these days. So even if you had like a hardcover, bulletin that's put out every week on the table, well, I'm sure hopefully now people are sending those out via email. And so many of us are online and things like that. Sometimes it's easier to have that information in advance versus just a straight hard copy that's just there. So that way, if for some reason you can't be at the meeting, you actually know what's going on. And so you as a secretary, that's one of those things that you should be involved with. It may not be your job specifically in your club, but if it's not being done, maybe look into it. Why is it not being done? And maybe that is something you should look into as the secretary of your club. Next, Jeff, thanks. Okay, so before July 1st, begin studying the manual, the bylaws. Make sure you're aware of any changes that have been made. Maybe you read the bylaws a couple of years ago and you haven't been on the board for the last couple of years. Make sure that you have looked at them and you're aware of what changes have been made in your club. If you're the record keeper and you are the person who is in charge of information from your club, you need to make sure that you're up to date on that. Before July 1st, make sure you, like we were discussing earlier, confer with the president-elect, the treasurer, and the outgoing secretary. Find out what's important and how the president wants to run his meetings. If he's going to change things, you need to be aware of that. A lot of clubs, the number of the jobs that we do as secretaries, some of them are done by treasurers in a club. So that relationship between you and the treasurer is very, very, very important. Make sure that the treasurer and you have a good relationship, because there's a lot of things, especially with money and funds going to the district, going to Rotary International. Some of those in some clubs are jobs of the treasurer, some are the secretary. So just make sure you both know where you're coming from and who's responsible for what before it all starts. Attend district training, assembly, and conference. Obviously, if you're on here today with me, listening to me, you're attending the district training assembly. And hopefully I look forward to seeing many of you guys at conference and other district events going forward. Most clubs have an informal meeting prior with the incoming officers to talk about what you as a board are going to do. I know some groups have already discussed doing this via online, and some groups are starting to plan that maybe something they would normally do the beginning of May, maybe they're going to do it late May so they can get together. Attend current board meetings. If you are not currently an officer and haven't attended a current board meeting, maybe that's something that you might want to look to do. I know our club is having our board meetings online, which I'm sure many of you guys are. So maybe ask the outgoing secretary if you can join in on meeting going forward, so you have an idea of what's going on, especially at least in June, if not before. Most clubs are pretty open with their board meetings and really doesn't bother anybody to have more than just the regular board on those meetings. But just be aware of what your club is going to allow. All right, next, Jeff. Primary tasks during the year. Keeping minutes of all board meetings. This is really important. This is so that your club members kind of know what's going on besides just the board. Also too, how many of you guys have ever attended a board meeting and you took notes and you said you were going to do something? It was like, oh my gosh, what did I say I was going to do? Trust me, it's happened to me before too. Make sure that you are the keeper of those minutes so that when things come up over the course of time, people are being held accountable for what is going to happen in your club. If somebody said, oh, I'll take care of that, was it taken care of? So everybody's on the same page. Keeping up those minutes for all of us who get really, really busy is really important. Maintaining club attendance, that's very important as well. Who's on these meetings, who's not on these meetings. And it's really, as much as anything else, yes, it's important for reporting statistics and everything else, but if a member hasn't been there for a couple of times, you want to know why. Maybe they've been sick, maybe they've gotten hurt. And if somebody's not tracking attendance, then how will we know what's happening to our club member? And that's really, really important. So if you don't already have a policy for your club for attendance, if somebody's missed a couple times, maybe that's something you as a secretary can look at. I know in our club that somebody hasn't been there, I really try and reach out to them and make sure that, hey, hope you're doing okay, something's going on. And maybe there's somebody, because I'm in charge of kind of our social stuff in our club, that's what I do. You know, usually Mindy, who's our secretary, tells me about it and I kind of get on with that and talk about that. Maintain club contribution records. And that may not be something that you are doing. Maybe that's something that the treasurer would do. So just make sure once again, that's why I was saying that relationship between you and the treasurer is so very important, is to know where the boundaries are. If that's something in your club that you need to do, then you may need to make sure you have a good record of that. If that's something the treasurer does, where is that line drawn? So really having a very good relationship with your treasurer is super important. And once again, keeping up with your club membership records like we talked before. Once again, that's important. Keep that information as up to date as you possibly can. And if you just do it on a regular basis, with, say you have your board meeting and you have your laptop there or you have your computer there and you know somebody is being added to the club or somebody has left the club for certain reason, if you just do it right away, it makes it very easy. All right, Jeff, next. Thank you. Okay, Rotary International invoice. This has replaced the semi-annual report done on July 1st and January 1st. Rotary issues invoices based on the member records in Rotary.org. So once again, you want to make very, very sure that on January 1st and July 1st, that your numbers of your club are correct. If somebody, can you go back, Jeff? Jeff, can you go back? There we go. Okay. No, go the other way, Jeff. One more. There we go. Okay. You want to make sure that your records are up to date because this is how your club is going to be invoiced. If you've had a member pass away or you've had new members join, which is what we're all hoping for, you want to make sure that those records on those dates are up to date. Member additions and deletions must be made within 30 days. So before 1/1 and set the 7/1 invoice. So if you've had somebody change like 2 weeks before that, that's not really going to be up to date. All proration and other calculations are done by ROI on the 1st of January and the 1st of July, and they're not going to change it. So if what you have in there on those dates, even though maybe you forgot to do something, they're not going to change it. So club treasurer can issue checks or pay online via credit card. Once again, that's an important relationship you need to have with your treasurer. You want to make sure that what you've put in the system matches what your treasurer is going to do. And district dues are based on the same information that's on the RI invoice headcount. All right, Jeff, next. Okay. How RI calculates this invoice. RI dues per member for the 2021 year will be $34 per half year. So the first half a year runs from the 1st of July till the end of December, and then the 1st of January through the end of June. So that's $68 a year. The Rotarian magazine is also $6 per half year. So it's really about $80 a year that's going to RI. In July, an additional $1.50 is added per member for the Council on Legislation, and as well as insurance fee for the year, typically about $6 a member. And some people are like, well, what is that insurance fee? Well, when you hold an event, a fundraising event or anything like that, that's the insurance. You meet as a club, you have insurance. We all need insurance to cover what we're doing as Rotarians. RI will prorate dues for new members on the following semi-annual invoices. So if you have a member who joined, say, in March, they didn't join back in January, they will prorate that for you at that time. District dues are $22 per half year and are also due payable in July and January. The invoice is sent from the district to the club's mailing address. Please, please, please make sure if you as a secretary or whoever it is, make sure the mailing address is current and up to date, because that's where your invoice is going to be sent from the district, as well as some other district information. Next.
They'll also be emailed, correct, to the president, the treasurer,
Yes.
and the secretary.
But there's some clubs that still like to have the hard copy, right? Isn't that correct, Patty? I'm pretty sure there is. I know 2 of them.
Yes. We'll try to email to everyone, and then if they don't get paid, they'll get a hard copy in the mail as a reminder. Yeah.
Noni, question came up in the chat. You've got pretty detailed PowerPoint slides. Are we going to make the PowerPoint slides available along with the video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, most definitely. I'd be happy to send the PowerPoint out to everybody who's going to be a secretary this year. Would that be helpful?
I think that would be helpful to send it to secretaries, plus we'll hang it on the webpage.
Okay, we can do that. Weekly club responsibilities, mail. Discuss with your treasurer who is to collect the mail from the PO box. Are you or the treasurer to log in and post checks and make up bank deposits? If the treasurer is collecting the mail, make sure all other mail comes to you. I know certain clubs have the secretary is responsible for that. Some clubs, the treasurer is responsible. In our club, it's the treasurer. And so when I talked about this at the beginning, just every club is different. If your club does it differently than what I'm talking about, it's not wrong, it's not right, it's just that's the way your club handles it. So, but just make sure you as club secretary know who's responsible for what. Communicate to club leaders information, requiring their information. If you are collecting the mail or the treasurer's collecting the mail and he gives it to you, make sure if there's a thank you note in there that it's brought up at the board meeting. Make sure if somebody has sent some type of correspondence that has to go to the president-elect, your membership chair, make sure that information gets to them. Prepare correspondence to club members, district leadership, and Rotary International. What does that mean? Maybe you have a member who's transferring from another club, and you need to get proof that they left their club in good standing. That would be a type of correspondence that you would need to be responsible for. Next, Jeff. Weekly club responsibilities, admin. Help committee chairs order materials when needed, including badges, new member kits, paper products, and supplies necessary to maintain effective club operations. Often good to verify with the treasurer that those funds are available for this, if you've budgeted for it, because you don't want to order things that you don't have the money for. Some people in different groups order things differently. I know in some clubs that if it's badges and things like that, that's actually done by the sergeant at arms. Sometimes you have supplies like flags and things like that. It just depends on who is, in charge of that. Once again, make sure you read your bylaws, read through what your club has done in the past, talk to the secretary, find out who's in charge of what. I do see a couple of questions popping up, Jeff. Hold on, let's see if I can open those. I just saw part of it. Let's see.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, well, I'm reading. It says, as the secretary, I'm not receiving anything from the district or the state of the club. Should I be, or does all correspondence go to the president? That's the question. Patty, you could probably answer that better than I could, considering you sent most of that out.
Yeah, all correspondence does go to the president. If the secretary is not indicated in DAC-DB as being the club secretary, then we have no way to reach that person. So we just want to make sure that your position is listed in DAC-DB as secretary, because I do click that each time I send an invoice. I click the options to send to president, treasurer, secretary, and executive secretary, just to make sure somebody in the club's going to receive it.
And I don't know if Cheryl's just asking about like the Minitarian or something like that, because those come to the president, not necessarily the secretary, as the president would then send that information out to other club members.
Right, that's not really necessarily information that is like vital to administration of the club. That's more general information to club members. But things like invoices and things like that, if you are listed in DAC-DB as the secretary, like Patty said, you'll get copies of all that. Forward proposals for new members to appropriate club committees for processing membership. In our club, membership stuff comes to the membership chairman, and then it's put forward to our board. However your club does that, you may be in charge of receiving that off of, when questions come up or people put a new member packet together and people fill that out. You just, once again, you need to find out who's in charge of that, but you are responsible for logging that on to DAC-DB and making sure that's up to date if you do have a new member or a member has left. Enter new members and terminations, transfers, and classification changes within 30 days. That's very, very important, 30 days. Just because you want to have it as up to date as possible when you go into your next board meeting. Try and make sure you have all that new information in there, because it'll help your club make better decisions for what you're doing going forward. Right, next, Jeff.
Patty, if I could just say one thing that
Sure.
is, or Noni, that's a really important takeaway on this slide. The treasurer, secretary, and president need to communicate effectively and regularly.
Very important. Okay.
And I would add the membership chair to that as well.
Weekly club responsibilities and meetings. Ensure copies of the bulletin are available at each meeting or online and forwarded to the appropriate persons. If you do a club bulletin that is just a hard copy one, make sure you send it out to the members who don't show up, who can't be there for some reason. I think that's a really nice gesture, and it also lets them know, hey, we're thinking about you and we missed you. You weren't there this week. This is what's going on. Assist the president with a weekly meeting agenda if requested. Sometimes presidents don't want that help. Sometimes they really do. So like I said, have a good working relationship with your president and find out what they are looking for. Forward visiting Rotarians makeup cards to their home club, or actually just give them a hard copy. Some clubs I know do this. Back, Jeff. Okay, thanks. Some clubs get it via email and send it on to them. It just depends on what your club does. Enter any makeups received from other clubs online or from projects. This is a really good thing. I know our secretary for our club sends an email out monthly just to make sure she hasn't missed any makeups that people have done from projects and stuff like that. And that's a good reminder for our club members. Hey, if I've done something, maybe I attended district assembly like we're doing today, and they didn't know that, it reminds the member to send that on to your secretary so they can up to date that. So that's a really good thing to do on a monthly basis. If you send out an email to the club and remind them, hey, if you guys have done something, just let me know. Next, Jeff. Monthly duties. Work up an agenda for the board of directors meeting. That's often done by the president, but sometimes he wants you to do that. Prepare minutes from the prior board meeting, often best sent to the board prior to the meeting. Like I said, I know in our club, we really try hard to have our meeting minutes done as we're going along. If that's something that you're capable of doing, that's great. And that way the minutes go out right away. And then if there's any necessary changes, it can be done before your next board meeting, and people really have an accurate, if they go on to DAC-DB and they want to see what happened at the board meeting because they couldn't be there, they have an accurate assessment of what happened. Report Paul Harris Fellows sustaining payments from members and request Paul Harris recognition for members completing their Paul Harris Fellow commitment. A lot of times that's done by the treasurer. Once again, you need to have a very good working relationship with your treasurer. Who is doing what? Inform district of your club activities to be shared with other clubs on the district newsletter, maybe the PR chair like Davey. If you're doing something great, make sure people know about it. If you're doing something special, it's something to be celebrated. All right, next. Finish the job by reporting. District awards require reporting in DAC-DB no later than 6:30. Enter DAC-DB, the district and club database, and verify the correctness of your own data. Make sure before you take on the job of secretary, you are very well versed in DAC-DB, because if you get new members or anything like that, you are that person who really should be able to say, hey, I can help you with this. This is where you need to go to make this happen. They may not be familiar with it. So make sure if you are not totally savvy with DAC-DB, that you take an afternoon and really play with it and get in there and get to know what's in there and what's accessible for your club with DAC-DB. Very, very important as a secretary. All right, next. Prepare quarterly invoices for dues for all club members. That's probably maybe something that's done by your treasurer, but if it's not, then that is something you should be responsible for. And at the end of the year, fiscal year, identify all members with perfect attendance. I still remember back in my first year of being a Rotarian, it was so long ago, I don't even want to tell you, but I still remember my dad being super proud of me because I have perfect attendance. So even though Rotary has changed a little bit on how they do things, it's still great to have perfect attendance. And it's really not difficult these days with as many things as we can do online and you know, different projects you can do. So just make sure you celebrate that stuff with your club, and you as a secretary are the one who's keeping up with that. So once again, like I said, it's really, really helpful in the past, and I know a lot of other clubs do this. Try and send out that email to all your club members. It's just a good reminder for them that if they've done something or attended another club, they can get that information to you. Okay. Other duties. Change officer or meeting information with RI and the district during the year if needed. Perhaps you've had somebody who had to change a job, so you're going to have a new membership chairman, or you're going to have a different treasurer. Something happens. Things always do happen. Make sure that RI and the district know that that's happened. Sometimes you may have to change your actual meeting location. People need to know where to find you if they want to come. I do know for a fact our club is going to be moving down the road about a minute down the road to a different location once we get through this COVID-19 stuff. We need to make sure that our information online is up to date. So if somebody wants to come visit our club, say Rich and Marie wanted to come visit our club, although I don't know about that considering we meet at 7:15 in the morning. But if they did, they'd want to know that we're going to be in a different location so that they could come. In December, report new officers on RI and district websites. Sorry about that. Just make sure that once again in December, all your information is up to date. Prepare annual report, including actions by the board, net membership gain or loss for a year. It's always good for a club for a year to kind of see where they stand and what they've done this year. Are they gaining membership? Are they losing members? And if so, why? And so that report is really important. Assist the president with preparation for assistant governor's visit within the first 2 months. This year, the DG may attend other functions instead of a regular club meeting if desired. It's not that Rich is not. If you want him there, he's already said he will definitely be there, but he may do this out over a longer period of time. If you'd rather have Rich and Marie at your fundraiser, or you'd rather have them at a project you're doing, let him know that. But in the first 2 months, he's expecting his assistant governors to be there to visit each one of the clubs. So talk to your president about that. Talk about how you want to do it. Maybe one of the first board meeting things you talk about going forward into your year, perhaps like in June when you have a big group meeting. What do you want to have your district governor show up for? What do you want to have your assistant governor there for? And just kind of talk about things like that. Next, end of the year, take inventory on all records for your club to ensure completeness and accuracy. That's like one of your biggest jobs, is just taking care of all those records and making sure that they're complete and accurate and there's not some loopholes. Coordinate with incoming club secretary for a smooth transition. I do know in some clubs, the secretary is a position that, you know, they might have it for 2 years. They might have it for long term. It just depends on what your club is doing. Next. Okay, summary of reporting. This is a really good sheet to have, and we will have it up just so you just know. Maybe this is something you might want to keep up just so you have it. I know when I was secretary, I kept up a little piece of paper up there that just reminded me of when everything was due, so I'd make sure I got it done. Membership additions and terminations to RI within 30 days of change. Invoice RI with treasurer due upon receipt. No changes. Club information changes. RI and district governor, that's ongoing. Official directory information, that's to RI and district governor in March. So these are things those are dates that you really need to have going on. You need to keep up with as your club secretary. Next. And that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions? Also, I want to say too, I've had a conversation with Patty, and I will probably be sending out some emails to secretaries. And if people do not respond, I'm probably going to be one of those crazy people that I'm going to call you or text you until you respond to me, just to make sure if you have any questions or you need anything. I just want you to know that I'm here for you. And I know Patty is such an incredibly valuable resource. Our district has there's no comparison to anybody above Patty Chapman. So just wanted to let you guys know that, how wonderful and how blessed we are to have her, because she keeps us all in line. So do we have any other questions, Jeff? Oh, I see there's one on here. Hold on. If messages are sent to secretaries, can the executive directors be included as well? And yes, of course they can. We can definitely have that. I also see on here, Harvey said, maybe there's people who are secretaries for life. Yes, in some clubs they are. They don't change, and so they do know what's happened in their club, but then they most definitely need to make sure they're up to date on changes. Things change all the time in this world. RI changes things. make sure you as club secretary, if you've been doing this for a really long time, make sure you're up to date on those changes. And maybe some of your really old bylaws don't necessarily match what's going on today. So maybe if you've been doing this for a long time, maybe it's a good time to take advantage of your time that you might have with more stuff going on and look at those bylaws and make sure you're still current on that. Let's see, here's another question. Do we have any materials that give guidelines on how to write minutes properly so that they are not overly detailed but have enough detail for the important business to be remembered? Rosaria, I actually have a good outline that's really, really helpful for that. But like I was talking about earlier, go back and look at your other secretaries' minutes and see if there's enough information there. But I would be happy, I'm writing myself a note right now so I don't forget. Rosaria, I will go ahead and get you a copy of.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a secretary. I'm going to be the president-elect, but I find there's so much diversity in the way the minutes are written. Times they're not as helpful as they need to be, and then other times it has too much stuff in it. I just wondered if there was a training prototype that we could pass on to people taking minutes.
I do have a copy of one that that I've gotten offline from RI, and that that you can use for your club. But like I said, every club is a little bit different, so you kind of need to tweak it for yourself. But I'd be happy to get that to you. Do you want me to send it to you or to your secretary?
Send it to me because I'll incorporate it into my leadership when I take.
Okay, Rosaria, which club are you in?
Daytona Beach, the Rotary Club of Daytona Beach.
Okay.
Noni, one thing I would add, having been a president, the thing that makes the secretary's job so much easier, if the president has a good, solid, structured agenda, it makes it a whole lot easier to take minutes.
Yes, it really does. And if the president sends those agenda out prior, it makes it very, very easy for you as a secretary to fill in those blanks. So make sure if this is something, this is where you really need to have that meeting with your president elect beforehand. Find out what's important to him and what kinds of things he's expecting. And so you, Rosaria, that would be something coming from you. Make sure your secretary is aware. Look at what best practices happened last year, what worked well, what didn't work well, and then you need to tweak that and make that your own and make sure your secretary is aware of that.
Thank you.
Does anybody?
There was a lot of information in there about DAC-DB and doing things in DAC-DB. There will be specialized DAC-DB classes tomorrow. We'll have an introductory of DAC-DB tomorrow. I lost my schedule. I think it's at 10:30, and then an advanced DAC-DB that actually one of the DAC-DB representatives will be teaching, and that's at 11:30.
I think Jimmy Z was in the room. Jimmy, are you still here? Jimmy Z was in the room at the beginning of the session. He is going to be teaching the first class, and you know, he and Mike have worked really well this year, and he is a wealth of knowledge about DAC-DB that goes well beyond what he can teach you tomorrow. So take advantage of that amazing district resource. Mike?
Yeah, if I can mention, Jim at the beginning of this year answered my call for somebody to help clubs. When a club needs somebody to look at the screen and say, how do I navigate through DAC-DB? He'll get on the phone with you and walk you step by step by step along so that you can find out how to do things like integrate your information with Rotary's information. You don't have to put it in both places. He can show you how to get it so it synchronizes. He can do all sorts of things to help you out on that. Patty's also great, but Jim has committed himself to doing that for everybody, each one of the clubs.